Monday mornings were always the same for me. Coffee came first, always black, no sugar. Then I'd open my laptop, check my emails, and get ready to tackle the mountain of work that never seemed to shrink. My name's Erica. I'm 34 years old, divorced, and, for the most part, married to my job now. It's not the life I imagined when I was younger, but it's the life I've built. That morning felt like any other, until I saw her name in my inbox. Sheila. My sister, the one I hadn't spoken to in 12 years. I froze. My hand hovered over the mouse, heart suddenly beating faster. I stared at her name like it might disappear if I blinked too fast. Finally, I clicked. Hey Erica. I know it's been a while, but I wanted to let you know I'm getting married in 2 months. The wedding's on Saturday, June 15th at the Grand Hotel downtown. I'd really like you to be there. Hope you're doing well. Sheila. It was casual, too casual, like we hadn't lost over a decade, like I hadn't walked away from her, and the rest of our family, without looking back. I read it again, then a third time, and then I just sat there, staring at the ceiling, remembering everything that led us here. It had been 12 long years. 12 years since I left our dad's construction company. 12 years since I basically told my family I was done, not in those exact words, but close. Back then, our family looked picture perfect from the outside. Mom and Dad, Robert and Linda, were high school sweethearts. I was the oldest. Sheila came just a year after me. We were close when we were little. We shared toys, clothes, secrets. We even went to the same schools and hung out with the same friends. Dad always made it clear he wanted the business, his construction company, to stay in the family. He said one day both of us would help run it. He talked about it like it was a legacy. I believed him. When I graduated college with a business degree, I was ready. Dad seemed proud. He told me I'd start at the bottom and work my way up. You've got to learn the business from the ground up, he said. Get your hands dirty. And I was fine with that. I wanted to earn it. So I did. I worked as a project coordinator. It wasn't fancy. I scheduled crews, dealt with permits, handled calls from contractors who were late or drunk or both. I came in early, stayed late, and gave everything I had. I thought I was earning my place. Then Sheila graduated. Same degree, same proud parents. But instead of working her way up, she was named Deputy CEO right out of college, just like that. I didn't even hear it from Dad. Jennifer from accounting told me. She pulled me aside in the break room, looked at me like she was about to deliver terrible news, and asked, "Did you hear about your sister?" I marched straight into Dad's office. Sheila was already in there, sitting in the guest chair, flipping through a budget report like she belonged. I didn't even try to stay calm. "What the hell, Dad?" He barely looked up. "Watch your language. We're in the middle of a meeting." "A meeting? While your other daughter, who's been busting her ass for a year, is finding out through gossip that you handed her little sister half the company." Sheila gave me this look, calm, collected, like I was being childish. "Erica, don't be so dramatic. Dad knows what he's doing." That hit me hard. Dramatic? You didn't even work a single day here, and now you're second in command? How does that make any sense? "I've been preparing for this for years," Sheila said. "Dad and I have talked about it since high school. Just because you weren't part of those talks doesn't mean they didn't happen." I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. All those conversations Dad had with me over the years about our future, about building something together, suddenly felt hollow, fake. I told him it wasn't fair, that promoting Sheila without experience would look bad to the employees, to the clients, that it screamed nepotism. Dad's face turned red. "Don't tell me how to run my business." And then Sheila cut in again, cool and sharp. "You always do this, Erica, always complaining, always turning everything into a problem. Maybe you're not the right fit here." That's when I knew. I wasn't part of the plan. Maybe I never had been. So I said, "Fine, you want me gone? I'm gone." I walked out without packing up my desk, without saying goodbye. I just left. I was 23 years old. I had a shiny degree and no job. But worse than that, I had no family. I didn't speak to Dad or Sheila again. Even Mom's call that night, crying about how I was tearing the family apart, didn't break me. I hung up on her. They chose Sheila. So I chose myself. For 2 weeks, I stayed in my tiny studio apartment, feeling sorry for myself, ate junk food, watched bad TV, wondered if I'd made a mistake. But self-pity doesn't pay rent. so I pulled myself together, updated my resume, and started job hunting. The day of Sheila's wedding finally came. I stood in front of my closet for way too long, trying on outfit after outfit. I didn't want to look like I was trying too hard, but I also didn't want to look like a failure. I wanted to show them I was doing well, successful, polished, but not so flashy that I'd draw too much attention. In the end, I chose a simple black dress, elegant but understated, with modest jewelry and low heels. It felt like the kind of outfit someone who'd made it would wear without needing to prove anything. The wedding was being held at the Grand Hotel downtown. Of course it was. The place practically screamed money: tall glass doors, shiny marble floors, sparkling chandeliers hanging from the ceiling like they belonged in a palace. It was the kind of place Sheila would dream about. I walked into the reception area, took a breath, and went straight to the seating chart. There it was, names printed in gold, arranged alphabetically. I scanned the list and found my name all the way at the bottom, table 12. I walked across the room to find it. It was tucked in the farthest corner of the ballroom, behind a huge pillar that blocked any view of the dance floor or the head table. Classic. Sheila had made sure I was hidden away like some distant cousin no one remembered inviting. I stood there, staring at my lonely little table, when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Erica, oh my God, I can't believe you actually came." I turned around and saw my parents. They looked older. Dad's hair had more gray in it, and Mom had deeper lines around her eyes, but they both wore big smiles, fake ones, the kind people wear when they're trying to play nice after ignoring you for over a decade. "Hello, Mom, Dad," I said flatly. Mom practically bounced toward me, her voice full of fake warmth. "We're just so happy you're here. We really didn't think you'd come. It's been so long." "Sheila invited me," I said. "I thought it was time to show up." Dad stepped forward awkwardly and went in for a hug. I let him, but my arms stayed at my sides. I wasn't here to pretend. "You look good, kiddo, very professional." "Thanks," I said simply. Mom glanced around, then leaned in and lowered her voice like she was letting me in on some important secret. "Tonight is for the people who've really been there for Sheila. The main table is for the wedding party and, you know, the closest family friends, but we made sure you had a good spot over there. You'll be comfortable." She pointed toward the table in the corner like she was doing me a favor. I almost laughed. Even after all this time, they couldn't resist reminding me of where I stood in this family, on the outside, always. "Thanks for thinking of me," I said with a tight smile. "I'm sure it'll be great." I made my way over to table 12 and sat down. The other guests at the table looked like distant relatives or random plus ones no one really knew. They smiled politely but didn't talk much. I didn't mind. I wasn't here to catch up with anyone. As I sat there, I watched my family float around the room. Dad was shaking hands with other men in suits, probably business contacts he was trying to impress. Mom was glowing, playing the perfect hostess and proud mother of the bride. And Sheila, in her puffy white dress, was the center of it all, soaking up attention like a spotlight had been following her since birth. Every now and then, I caught whispers from nearby tables. "That's the older daughter," someone said behind me, "the one who left the family business." Another voice chimed in. "I heard she just gave up, couldn't handle it." A woman's voice. "What a shame, some people just don't have what it takes." I took a sip of wine and kept my face neutral. Let them talk. Dinner was actually good. Sheila had spared no expense, multiple courses, fancy appetizers, expensive wine. I ate quietly and waited. I wasn't here just to eat or watch the show. I had a reason for coming. When it was time for the toasts, the maid of honor gave a sweet speech, full of inside jokes and memories. Then someone from the groom's side stood up and talked about love and commitment and all the things people say at weddings. I took out my phone and sent a quick text to Marcus, "Call now." Within a minute, I saw Dad pull out his phone. He glanced at the screen and stepped away from the table to take the call. I watched his face from across the room as Marcus delivered the message I had written word for word. "Mr. Richardson, this is Marcus Stevens from Meridian Development. Our CEO is present at your daughter's wedding today and will be speaking with you shortly about the final decision on the construction contract." Dad's entire body language changed. He looked around the room in a panic, clearly trying to spot the mystery CEO. His eyes moved from table to table, scanning for someone who looked powerful and rich. That's when I stood up. I walked across the room calmly, heels clicking against the floor. Dad was still holding the phone when I tapped him on the shoulder. Excuse me, I said, I think you're looking for me. He turned around, surprised. I'm on an important call, he said, annoyed. Can this wait? I smiled and handed him my business card. I don't think it can. He looked down at the card, and I watched the color drain from his face. Erica Miller, he read slowly, CEO, Meridian Development. His mouth dropped open, the phone slipped from his hand and hit the floor with a soft thud. He looked like he'd just seen a ghost. Mom appeared beside him, frowning. What's going on? Dad whispered, it's Erica, she runs the company. Mom blinked, confused. What company? The one negotiating to save our business, I said clearly, the one that could have pulled Richardson Construction out of bankruptcy. Sheila rushed over, annoyed. What's happening? Why is everyone standing around? Dad silently handed her my business card. I watched her read it, eyes widening with disbelief. No, this isn't real. You left, you gave up, you're nobody. Actually, I said calmly, I walked away from you, and I built a life where people earn respect, not because of who they're related to, but because of what they've achieved. People were starting to notice, conversations slowed, phones came out, the room got quiet. Dad tried to pull me aside. Erica, let's talk privately. No thanks, I think everyone should hear this. I walked to the microphone. The DJ looked unsure but didn't stop me. Hi, everyone, I said, I'm Erica, the bride's older sister. We haven't seen each other in 12 years. Tonight, my parents reminded me of where I stand in the family, table 12, in the corner, where I wouldn't bother anyone important. People began whispering, phones were filming, the whole room was watching now. But here's something they didn't know, I continued, I'm also the CEO of Meridian Development, the company that's been in talks with Richardson Construction for a major project. I came tonight to make a decision. I raised a glass of champagne. To family, to respect, and to learning who really matters. Then I looked straight at Dad. And as for the contract, we're walking away. Meridian doesn't work with people who value blood over merit. The room exploded, people gasped, Sheila cried, Dad tried to shout something, but I turned and walked toward the door. Just before I left, Dad caught up. Erica, please, we need this contract. You told me to leave 12 years ago, I said, so I did, and I did just fine. But if we lose the company, that's not my problem. Mom appeared, tears in her eyes. Please, don't do this to us. I'm not doing anything to you, I said, this is what happens when you burn bridges. My phone started buzzing with texts the moment I got to my car. I didn't read them. Over the next few weeks, they kept coming, pleas from Dad, apologies from Mom, even offers for smaller contracts. I ignored them all. A month later, Sheila called. You have to fix this. If Dad's company fails, I'll lose my job. Then I guess it's time to find a new job, I said, one you earned. 6 months passed. Richardson Construction filed for bankruptcy. Mom and Dad still had money, but their world got smaller, quieter. Last week, Sheila called again. Do you have any openings? She asked. I have experience. I laughed. Sheila, my team works hard, they earn their place, you wouldn't last a week. I hung up, and I didn't feel bad. This wasn't revenge. It was justice. And it was long overdue.